Psych-Minded Media presents Best Psychology in Film with your host, Dr. Catherine Marshall Woods. Best Psychology in Film is also a book available online where books are sold. Today's featured guest, Lanre Olabisi. Hi, my name is Dr. Catherine Marshall Woods, and welcome to Best Psychology in Film. Many times, individuals who are victimized possess resources that help to protect them against becoming traumatized. But what happens when one experiences an event that is overwhelming to cope with and leaves them exhausted from their existing resources? The film, A Storybook Ending, written and directed by Lanre Olabisi, illustrates how a series of events can significantly impact and alter the course of one's experience. Welcome to the show, Lanre. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I had the pleasure of seeing your film during the Roxbury Film Festival that was held in Boston, but of course virtually this year. And your film short was one that truly stood out to me. Can you share with us a little bit about what your film was about?
So in a nutshell, it's about a black man who accidentally kills an undercover white police officer in self-defense. And then the subsequent cover-up sets off a chain reaction of deceit, blackmail, and ultimately murder.
That sounds thrilling.
Oh, by the way, it's a dark comedy. I always forget that part.
It's interesting because you note that it's a comedy, and when I watched your film, I found myself not laughing quite frequently because it was so intense. Can you share with us a little bit about where you came with the idea of this film? It was so unique.
So the idea actually came. So first of all, the film comes from it's a short based off of a feature film that I had written, and the idea for the feature film actually came from an incident that happened back in 2015 with James Blake, the African American tennis player. For people who aren't familiar, he was waiting at the Waldorf Astoria or something like that right outside, and he was waiting for a cab to take him to the US Open. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a police officer runs up to him, throws him onto the ground. But the thing is, it was an undercover police officer. He never identified himself. James Blake said when he was getting attacked, he actually thought he was being attacked, like mugged by somebody, and he didn't fight it, right? And he didn't realize that it was a cop until he was already on the ground. The guy started putting handcuffs on him, which, and obviously it was a case of mistaken identity. The police officer thought he was somebody else. But I thought, when I saw that in that moment, I thought that could potentially be really dangerous. So what would happen if that happened to me? I wrestled at the University of Michigan. I have an extensive background with martial arts, right? So I thought, if somebody attacked me like that and I just thought I was being attacked, then I'd throw them. And what would happen if I threw them? What would happen if they hit their head? What would happen if they died? What would happen if it was a cop? What would happen? And then I just started running through all these what if questions in my head. And then what would happen if I just kept on making the wrong decision over and over and over and over again? And that was really what spawned the idea for the story.
I think that's one of the things that made this story so powerful was that I felt like this could happen to anyone, that anyone could be standing or walking and a person attacks them and then they respond. And it leads to this situation where now they're faced with something that changes their lives forever.
Forever. I mean, you might have heard about what happened to I think it was a Wake Forest assistant basketball coach. I think somebody hit his car and then he just walks up behind him, clocks the guy, he falls, hits his head, boom, dies. And it's like that stupid choice changed his life forever. So yeah, yeah. So that's actually something that's always kind of scared me. That's why I actually stay away from any sort of physical altercations, because you never know what freak accident could happen, and it's just not worth it at the end of the day.
Right. And one of the things I talked about when I introduced you was that these sorts of events that come out of nowhere, really. I mean, they're not predictable, they're not planned, they're not premeditated, have the opportunity to traumatize you.
Hmm.
And it takes a certain type of person to be able to not experience trauma based upon the resources they have and the defenses they have and the support that they have to be able to move through it. But like you said in your film, you find this character and individuals with is that there is continuous mistakes that happen over and over again.
Yes. Yeah, I just think there's, in film, the lifeblood of film is ultimately conflict, and the lifeblood of conflict are people making the incorrect, irresponsible choice oftentimes. So many times it's fun to explore if you make the incorrect, irresponsible choice, how can you then get out of it, maybe?
Well, is there hope for your characters?
No. I mean, I guess it depends upon how you view the world. I think for some people it would be no. For some people it might be yes. At the end of the day, they do come together, so that is hopeful. So we know there'll be a unit.
Okay, so we talked about the support that a person can have to protect them from becoming traumatized once they have been victimized in some way.
Right.
So your characters may have a supportive ear and shoulder to lean on at the end.
Right. So, the husband has the wife has the husband, and at the end of the day, they're going to try to conquer this together. I'm not sure what's going to happen with them or if it's going to work out for them, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while.
Are you suggesting there may be a sequel?
No, I mean, I haven't thought of a sequel. Um, but again, my dream and my ideal is to first make the feature film.
I see. And that makes sense. Certainly, this short hooks you in. So when I said this could happen to anyone, it really, I think, puts into perspective how vulnerable our sense of security with our current life can be. That these events can truly occur, and you're going along with all of the fantastic decisions you've made in your life. And this one event happens, even an accident or a mistake,
Mhm.
that then can change the trajectory of your life.
Right.
And how do people come from that, or can they come from it? One other aspect that I wanted to highlight in your film is about privacy and how individuals may or may not have that any longer. And I was wondering your thoughts on that.
So privacy in what sense? Like just the fact that we have phones everywhere? Yeah, I mean, the thing is today, and the interesting thing is, in a way, I couldn't have made this film. I mean, I could have made aspects of this film, but it's really a sign of the times that everything's being filmed nowadays. People see an altercation, boom, let's film it. I, like, and I'm sure we've all seen crazy things on the internet where you just think, who would think of pulling out their phone and filming it at this moment? It's just it's crazy to me that people are just filming some of these moments. And yeah, it is an interesting commentary on privacy and how it's kind of we don't have it as much as we used to.
Mhm. It leads to more and more desire to be able to come together. That when a privacy is broken in some way, and two people have to cope with that challenge, you find individuals coming together more and more to be able to figure out how to protect one another from
Right.
challenges.
Right.
So when you talk about the unit comes together at the end, we can see a little bit about how that might happen. And because there's one goal really at the end, which is protecting each other.
Exactly. Because ultimately, obviously, they want to figure out a way out of this nightmare that they found themselves into. And I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know how they are going to do it, but I think they have a better chance now that they are together than if they were apart.
Hear more of this interview at Best Psychology in Film on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, and where podcasts are hosted. Want to make your film psychologically rich? Visit our website at www.psychmindedmedia.com to collaborate. And find more on Instagram at psychmindedmedia. Created with works by